On today's show, the Hawks go on the road to Indiana and win their NBA Cup opener, plus the waiting game on Trae Young and more, and it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2091 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening here. It's Halloween. It's the end of the month of October, and today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5. If your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out. Subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcasts, places like Apple and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so please like this video as you're watching it and tell a friend, colleague, family member, etc. about this podcast. We appreciate you being here as always. I kind of planned on this being a half Trae Young update episode and a half game episode, and then 48 plus hours later, the Hawks still have not released an injury update on Trae Young. So this will be quick at the top of the show. I think it is definitely still the most important storyline around the Hawks right now is that Trae Young, if you missed it, left the game on Wednesday. The Hawks called it a right knee sprain. That's a generic listing, as I discussed yesterday on the show. But we'll see. I was told today from Indianapolis that the Hawks sent Trae back to Atlanta for the MRI that he had. Actually was told that Steve Holman, the Hawks radio broadcaster, passed along on the air. So I think it's safe to report based on that Trae didn't actually have the MRI until today. So that's also part of this as well. There were some delays weather-wise in New York. I know the Hawks team plane, which Trae was not on, I don't believe, from New York to Cleveland got delayed for several hours after the game. There was some weather stuff there. So all that to say, we just don't know. I know Trae sent out a tweet that got people's attention. I'm not in the business of interpreting social media posts. What I would say for now, and people keep asking me, and I get why, for guesses or estimates or whatever, I don't have one for you. I know there was a couple of interesting, Twitter doctor kind of videos about what might happen. Quinn did say, as I passed along on the show on Wednesday evening, that the Hawks, at least he said into a microphone, that the ACL was intact, or basically that they weren't worried about the ACL. But there's still a wide range here. Everyone's holding their breath. I don't inherently believe that the long delay means something's definitely bad. I've seen that thrown around. I don't really agree with that. I think a player on Trae Young's level, and I've heard the same around and asking people from other teams or other organizations, a player at this level does get a little bit more of an extra, like maybe second opinion, third opinion kind of thing. The Hawks have not said that. I do think we'll definitely get I shouldn't say definitely. I think we'll get an update on Saturday. Obviously, Saturday is a tough one as far as podcasting is concerned between games and all that. But in the meantime, everyone's still holding their breath around the Hawks, and that is the lead story, but certainly not much to add. I recommend, by the way, listening to the shows already this week. This is going to be our 6th episode of the week. I talked to Tony East yesterday of Locked On Pacers. Before that, a Nets breakdown and Trae Young injury breakdown, etc. So please go ahead and lock in. And that's all I will have on the Trae thing for now, because look, it's basically a non-update as of late Friday night into Saturday. As for the game itself, this is the NBA Cup opener for the Hawks and for the whole league. Not everybody played today, but it was the first Cup night in the league. The first of 4 group games for the Hawks. No Trae, of course. The Pacers, though, were the team that had the much worse roster situation in this game. Trae Young was the best player, well, in my opinion. But anyway, Tyrese Halliburton's out for the year. But other than Trae, everybody else that was injured in this game was on the Indiana side. No Halliburton for the whole year, but no Nembhard, no McConnell. So their top 3 point guards unavailable. No Ben Mathurin, no Obi Toppin, who Rick Carlisle said was going to have surgery tonight. So 5 of their top 8, 9 players were unavailable in this game. So I won't lie to you. The state of the Pacers right now is pretty bad. They are now winless. They're 0-5 after tonight's game. So I won't act like the Hawks beat the Thunder tonight, but it's still a road game against the NBA team that's well coached. Siakam still played, Aaron Nesmith, etc. So it was a situation where the Hawks were road favorites in a game without Trae Young, which does tell you kind of the state of the Pacers right now. But our friends at FanDuel only had the Hawks as like 2.5-point favorites in this game. So it wasn't some like giant perceived difference, again, with Trae out. But look, the Hawks started this game, as we'll talk about later on, very poorly for the first few minutes of this one. And very similarly to what happened against Brooklyn on Wednesday, once the light came on, they were the better team by a lot from that point forward. So offensively, they had a 127 offensive rating in this game. That's obviously fantastic. They shot it really well inside the arc the entire way. They were 31 of 39 at the rim in this game. They had 74 points in the paint. It was very obviously an emphasis in this game, and rightly so. The Hawks took 45% of their shots at the rim. That's 94th percentile. Now, I asked Quinn Snyder about this. I asked Nikhil Alexander-Walker about this as well. Everyone is certainly accurate in saying that you always want to get shots at the rim and shots at the paint. But I think the Hawks figured out, and no one said this. This is me analyzing, not them saying it. I think you could see the light come on a little bit that the Pacers, even at full strength, honestly, coming into the season, losing Miles Turner, all that, they don't have rim protection. And that became glaringly apparent. They were, other than Jarris Walker, who is still kind of, a combo 40 size guy who has some bona fides for lower levels, their center play is Isaiah Jackson, Jay Huff. Like, they don't have rim protection. It's a bad defensive front court right now for the Pacers. I think the Hawks figured that out, and they, to their credit, attacked it over and over and over again. Atlanta will not have too many nights when they have this many attempts at the rim, this many attempts inside the paint, points in the paint, all of that. They were really good there, and that was kind of the key, I think, offensively. They did a good job running as well. They had 28 fast break points in this game. That has to happen without Trae Young because, yes, they're playing bigger, but it's also harder to score in the half court, and they know that. So playing faster and also creating havoc defensively should make some sense there. They did okay on the offensive glass in this game. Ball security has been great all year long. Honestly, the best trait by the numbers for the Hawks through 6 games has been their turnover rate. They are fantastic so far in that area, and I appreciate that as a observer. The Hawks are now number 2 in the league in turnover rate this year, behind only the Thunder. So that's a great sign, and to do it without Trae is also very helpful there as well. And they had real balance in this game. 7 guys double figures for the Hawks. All 9 guys that played real minutes in this game had at least 6 points each. It wasn't 1 guy, it wasn't 2 guys, it wasn't 3 guys. They did a good job, egalitarian basketball, taking advantage of the Pacers' weaknesses for sure, but also once they woke up, it was pretty consistently aggressive, which is certainly what they have to be in their current form. And then defensively, they had good numbers in this game. 107 defensive rating is really, really good. Importantly, from the first few games of the season, the Hawks got back in this game a lot. They only allowed 8 fast break points. There was 1 really bad breakdown, but other than that, they were really pretty attentive in that area. And Indiana shot 42% on twos, not from the field, on twos only, which is a really bad number for them and a really good number for the Hawks. Now, the one thing I will say, and I said this during the game, and then the result got better and better for the Hawks overall, so people kind of glossed over it a little bit. But through the first 6 games, and I'm including this one where they won comfortably. Certainly they won comfortably. I get that. They have not been able to rebound the basketball on defense. And I thought it was funny today, and funny, ironic, whatever word you want to use, that the Hawks had 1 good defensive rebounding quarter in this game, and it was the quarter that they won by 17 points. In the first half, they had a 57% defensive rebound rate. That is atrocious. That is terrible. In the third quarter, when they ran away with the game, it was 84%, which is elite defensive rebounding. Now, they're not going to do that all the time either. And then it went back in the fourth quarter to being even worse, 47%. So basically so far this season, the Hawks have, when they've rebounded a little bit defensively, been really good. When they haven't, it's been hit and miss. I still think that they should be better than this, but I asked Quinn about it. It was the last question of his post-game address. He basically just said they have to be more attentive, more energy, more effort on the glass. I tend to agree with most of that, but it has still been, if you're looking for a problem, if you're trying to be a negative person on the Hawks so far this season, that is certainly for me, basketball-wise, stat-wise, the worst trait of the team right now is that they are currently 29th in defensive rebounding. And tonight was an example of that. But beyond that, they were pretty good. Now, they did allow too many free throw attempts in this game, 33, but most of those were in the first half. Once they stopped fouling, that also helped them overall to stop Indiana. So, look, in the first 6 minutes, they're down 20-8 in this game, even though they won by 20. Like, it was pretty rough again. And that's going to have to stop at some point. They're also going to have to stop giving up a 10-point lead early in the first quarter of every game. But if you're trying to be a little bit more positive about the game, from that point until they called the dogs off at the very end of the game, they were pretty dominant. And again, even with caveats applying about Indiana's roster and all of that fun stuff, it's still a road game in a cup environment. There's some higher intensity in these games, and it was a really nice win for the Hawks to improve to 3-3 on the year. And importantly, if you are someone who cares about the cup, the Hawks are now 1-0 in the cup, and that does matter in a 4-game sample size. All right, more to come in a second when it comes to how this game unfolded, my observations, my analysis, and more after a word from our partners. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win. Not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money, trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools. Take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. Expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. The NBA is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep your fans in the bag all season long. Whether you are watching for the highlights, your fantasy teams, or just want to watch your favorite player, perhaps, DoorDash makes every single game and game night even better for you. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player has 50 points or more in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking about player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you actually want. With DoorDash, although that's not just food as well, you can get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, even socks, all delivered to you. They have you covered across the board with DoorDash for late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double OT fuel ups as well. So the next time actually someone has 50 points or more in an NBA game, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dashboard members only, 50% off, up to $10 the next day after 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. All right, with Trae Young out, no surprise, they started Nickeil Alexander-Walker in his place in the backcourt, as they did in the second half against Brooklyn. I kind of asked Quinn how they might prepare differently without Trae before the game. He didn't get into a lot of specifics, but he did say kind of like, if you look at the second half against Brooklyn, that's a pretty good template. That happened in this game. It wasn't exactly like that, but I think people were seemingly surprised by Nickeil starting. Like, I got questions about it that were like from that kind of angle. I was not surprised. I thought it was pretty obvious. The Hawks basically have 6 remaining without Trae. They have 6 remaining clear starting level guys, and starting 5 of them makes a lot of sense. I know that people want a smaller point guard who's more traditional, but I think for me, like, Nickeil is so much better than the other options that why wouldn't you start him and play more minutes and maybe stagger him and Dyson? So no surprises for me there, and he was really good in this game. However, the Hawks were down 18-6 at the first time out. They allowed way too much penetration early in the game. It was collapsing the defense, generally speaking. Pascal Siakam was hot early on, basically against anybody other than Dyson. He was basically doing whatever he wanted to. Also, Indiana made their first 3 threes, which is certainly helpful. They were much cooler after that. Siakam banked one in, for example, early on. And then offensively, they had just zero verve, did the Hawks. Like, there were some bad possessions, bad process, not really moving quickly. A couple of decent looks that when they actually missed those when they even created them. And again, I said it earlier quickly, but they have to stop digging these holes. Like, yes, against Brooklyn and the zombie Pacers, which is what this was, you can do that. But against good teams, you can't afford to be down 18-6. Like, that's just hard to overcome. Rotationally, no big surprises, I will say. Now, it was Kennard, Gay, and Okongwu as the first 3 subs. That was expected. Those guys are basically the top 8 with Trae Young unavailable. Then Jalen Johnson got 2 fouls early, actually stayed in the game. I like that they don't auto-bench him sometimes. Keaton Wallace was the 9th man. No surprise there. I'd say actually he played his best game to date. There was some surprise, not necessarily surprise. What I would say about Keaton is that this is what you want Keaton for. I have gotten some people saying that I've been too hard on Keaton. It's not about Keaton personally. I like Keaton quite a bit. I praised him a lot last season. I think this is the role. Like, on a night when Trae Young is out, or a night that Dyson Daniels is out, something like that, it makes sense to give Keaton Wallace like backup minutes. 17 minutes tonight, that makes perfect sense to me with Trae out. It's that he was playing with everybody healthy that I didn't necessarily love, but he played well in this game, did his job very well. And then, by the way, something that I actually called for a little bit this week on the show on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, and on Patreon, all these places. I have long said I think Jalen Johnson is primarily a power forward. That's what he's always been in the NBA. He's played more 5 than 3 in his professional career. But I did say it would make a lot of sense in a non-Trae world in particular to go a little bit bigger. And I was kind of saying that on Twitter, like, hey, rather than trying to fill Trae's minutes with guards, and by guards I really mean like more of Keaton and more of Vit Krejci perhaps. Why don't you play more of Mo Gay? Why don't you play more big, generally speaking? And in order to do that, you kind of have to have Jalen play a little bit of the 3. I'm not saying you start him there, but we saw that a little bit in the second half in particular, where we saw some Jalen, Mo Gay, and Okongwu lineups where defensively you are just massive and rangy and interesting. And if you could score a little bit more, like for instance, if Jalen has the ball in his hands, and you have, maybe I think honestly you probably have to have Kennard out there at some point for some shooting, but that is something that they should try, that they finally did try in this game. I would still try more. Again, not all the time, but as a change up in order to allow your bigs to play more minutes. That would be very helpful for me. I did wake up mid-quarter with a 16-2 run to tie the game, and that was basically when the game flipped. It was kickstarted, I thought, by a nice pass from Jalen to Nikhil for a 3. Also got 3s from Keaton Wallace and Luke Kennard at that point in time. The Kennard one was actually encouraging and let it fly right away, which is good to see. The Pacers, though, I said earlier, they were open with their first 3 threes. They were 5 of 6 from the field to begin the game. And after that, they were 2 of their next 15. Reality struck the Pacers quite fast, I would say, in this one. Okongwu had a great block at the buzzer that I actually gave him grief about after the game about, I thought he was going to get a technical foul because he was correctly aggrieved by the foul being called. But in the first quarter, the Okongwu, Kennard, Mo Gay trio was plus 15 together. And I thought Keaton was his best stretch of the season so far was that first quarter when he came in. Second quarter, it was not quite as pretty. There was some breakdowns. There was one that my good friend Kevin Chenard posted on video that I already was going to mention, but Dyson made a driving layup that was a nice play by Dyson, getting all the way to the rim, and no one got back. And that allowed them to throw like a pretty easy outlet pass for a layup immediately right back. And Jalen Johnson was probably the biggest culprit on that play. But that just can't happen. But I will say to their credit, they got better as the game went along, and it was not really a problem in this game in the way that it has been at times. Alexander Walker was really, really good at getting downhill in this game. Talked about a little bit after the game as well, but drives to the middle, patient, all the way to the rim, not like pulling up short. Quinn gave a note in the post game that he thought that Hawks have been taking a little bit too many like contested mid-rangers. And I think that's mostly guys like Nikhil, Jalen. Those are kind of probably the 2 primary guys that have done that so far this year. But in this game, it was mostly drives to the rim all the way down there. Nikhil had a great one at the buzzer of the first half. He was really under control and dynamic off the dribble. Atlanta was up by 4 points at halftime. And after the way things started, that was positive, even though it was not the best overall half. They did allow too many free throw attempts in that first half. I mentioned it before, but the numbers just kind of start there. The Hawks shot 65% from 2 in the first half. And once the light came on, like they really just it seemed like they just decided to. And it's not that simple. I understand that. But that was the area to attack Indiana. And the Hawks, I think, figured that out a little bit too late, probably, but they figured it out eventually. Really, when the game ended, like it wasn't over, to be very clear. But a 22-5 run by the Hawks to open the third quarter was the difference in the game, basically. The Hawks were already in control of it a little bit at halftime, but then they had 4 of their first 5 shots in the third quarter were inside of 4 feet, including Porzingis getting active and better in that third quarter. Rishi had a dunk in that period of time. Jalen was really dynamic offensively and defensively, I thought. They got stops. They allowed 5 points in like 8 minutes, which is pretty impressive. Indiana shot 2 of 18 to begin the third quarter. So again, there was some help from the Pacers all the way through this game, to be fair. Jalen Johnson, though, had 8 rebounds and 4 assists in a 7-minute period. He was locked in. And I literally have in my notes, it's amazing what happens when the Hawks don't give up a ton of offensive rebounds. And that was what happened in the third quarter. Like, it wasn't only that, but that allowed them to actually get the stops, string them together, and make a big run that kind of ended the game. Also, Rishi was way, way, way better after halftime in this one. He had 10 points in the third quarter and was good. It was a dominant quarter. And by the way, in the first half, the starters really struggled by the plus minus. That first stint in the first quarter was really rough. Second half, opposite of that, and I like to see that because the starting lineup is kind of getting some criticism. That front court, it's still too early for me to make sweeping decisions about front court stuff. But the Jalen Porzingis pairing has not worked by the numbers so far this year, but it did in the third quarter, which is a good sign, I thought. At least a small one. In the fourth, not too much to talk about. They're up by as many as 24 points. They lost a few minutes early in the fourth. It's probably a good time to go and say this now. Point differential matters in the NBA Cup. And not every team pushes all the way to the max. But it does matter how much you win by or lose by, which is obviously very different from the rest of the season. And there was an incident at the end of the game. Incident maybe even too strong of a word, but the Hawks did pull the plug late. They put in all the bench guys, like the third unit guys, late, even with the cut point differential implications out there. But the Pacers coaching staff seemed to be kind of bothered by what happened at the end of the game. Like the Hawks didn't just hold it like they normally would in a lopsided win. Quinn seemed genuinely confused by their reaction in both live in the moment, also on the TV replay. And then Quinn came into post game and he basically almost never does a opening statement. He'll come in and ask for questions. He came in and kind of he didn't apologize, but he definitely had a somber air about him post game about how he didn't really like the point differential stuff. He wanted to be respectful to Rip Carlisle, who he calls actually called a mentor and all that. I will say, and Quinn says the same thing. Even if he basically said, I understand it, why you have to score. The bench was calling for them to score at the end of the game, whatever. I'll just note that he didn't seem happy about it. But that's why the Hawks did play their starters a little bit longer than they probably would have normally, because every point matters. Yeah, if you go 4-0 in the group, you're in. It doesn't really matter. But if you go 3-1, and by the way, last year, the Hawks won the group at 3-1 because they had a good point differential. That was part of the reason why they won the group. So it matters, and they're currently number one in the group at this very moment. Quinn won a challenge in the fourth quarter as well. That was not a huge important thing. Nikhil wanted to get he got called for a foul and did not like the call and was right about that. But the lead was pretty safe. It never got below 15 in the fourth quarter at any point. The game was really over officially when Kong went a three-point play with 3 minutes to go. But it was really never in doubt, I didn't think, down the stretch. And once the Hawks had that big run in the third quarter, they were just the better team. And Indiana didn't really have the firepower to overcome that. By the way, Siakam played 30 minutes. He's by far their best player. They kind of pulled off as well. So it is what it is. But when guys like Ray J. Dennis and Mac McClung and Taylor Peter and Quentin Jackson are playing minutes for you, the Pacers were kind of drawing dead once the Hawks figured out that they could just attack the rim whenever they wanted to in this game. All right, more to come in a second when it comes to the player evaluation stuff, a look ahead, and more after a word from our partners. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you start missing the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand in the middle of the game, FanDuel has everything that you are looking for when it comes to live bets and everything from who will score next to comebacks and much more. Plus, you can even combine the live bets together into a segment parlay if you want to for a shot at a bigger payout. On top of that, they have all the kind of bet types that you like: point spreads, over-unders, money lines, props, future bets, live betting, and so much more. And they have all the sports that you love as well, including the NBA, which we talk about all the time on this podcast. The NFL, college basketball, college football, baseball. They have hockey, they have golf, soccer, tennis, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. Plus, FanDuel is really easy to use, and they're fast to pay out when you win. They keep every single game exciting, whether it's your team especially making that late push or the player that you're looking for or whatever. It's all exciting for you at FanDuel. And right now, they're giving new customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. So the place to go to head to right now is FanDuel.com. Sign up right now and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so the player evaluation stuff in this game. 4 guys got in the game only in the final minute or two: Jacob Toppin, and Folly Dante, Caleb Houston, Asa Newell. Won't talk about those guys because they didn't really do anything in this game. But 9 guys did play pretty well across the board, I thought. Keaton Wallace, 11 points on 5 shots. He was 3 from 3. That wasn't why I thought he played well, but that obviously helps to make shots. 7 assists, no turnovers for Keaton. That was what you want to see. He played well in this game. Like I said, he's in the role he probably should be in now with Trae out, but did his job well here, defended well. His best game of the season pretty easily for me. Mo Gay, 16 minutes, 6 points, 6 rebounds, did have 4 fouls, but I think was really good defensively. Offensively, less impressive, but still did his job very well, helped the defense, and was a big part of that big run, the first big run in the first half to get the game back into control after they were down early. Okongwu was really good in this game as well, 14 points on rebounds, Fournier, he's been really good. Like since the first half, basically, of the first game when he was really struggling, 5.5 games now, he's been really playing very well. And look, somebody asked me this today, like, yeah, I think Okongwu's been better than Porzingis, like pretty easily so far this year. Does that mean it's going to always be that way? No. Does it mean you have to suddenly start Okongwu from now on? No. But he has been playing well, and it's good to see that after his breakout in the second half of last year. Luke Kennard, 6 points on 7 shots, 3 rebounds, 2 assists for Luke, was plus 18 in the game. Didn't shoot it well, but other than that, was a good caretaker. I think actually played pretty well defensively by his standard. And I think that there is a school of thought that if Luke is your worst defender, you're probably in just totally fine shape. And he was in this game, which is totally fine. To the starters, good balance. The one guy who I did not think played particularly well was Porzingis. 15 points, 8 rebounds for Kristaps on 13 shooting possessions. I will say he was quite good in the third quarter when the run was being made to put the game away. First half, he was really struggling. Later, he got a little bit tired, I think. But in that little sweet spot, you could kind of see what it looks like. But I think generally his defense is not quite where you want it to be so far. And then the rebounding is a weakness of his forever. So better days ahead, I think, for Porzingis, but he's not been playing super duper well by his standards so far. Richeche had a tale of two halves game. First half was pretty brutal, actually. And then the second half, he was good. Very active, using his speed. He took a bunch of shots, hit 3 threes in the second half, 13 points, plus 6. And actually, I think he was minus 12 early on. So for the rest of the game, he was pretty good. And I thought he played well when the light came on for him. Jalen Johnson was awesome in this one. 22 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and a block, plus 13 for Jalen. 9 of 13 on twos. He was in attack mode. Love to see that. Defensively, he got better as the game went along. I was critical of his defense on the show on Wednesday night. I stand by that for the season so far, but it was better tonight. He was more attentive, and I think there was some praise from Quinn coming because of that. I think he's got the sky's the limit for Jalen. I think all-star ceiling is certainly in there, and I think he showed that tonight. He was really good across the board. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was excellent, I thought. 21 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds for Nickeil. 2 steals, plus 17. He was 7 of 9 on twos, 1 of 5 from 3. Yeah, he's been attacking effectively. I think his off dribble game has been better than advertised so far. I think that he and Dyson can play together and should play together. And I think on a night when stuff matters more in the fourth quarter, those guys should be, for me personally, I would, without Trae especially, I would stagger them and have one of them on the court at all times and have them play together a bunch too. Like both, I think Nickeil is a mid-30s minute player right now with Trae unavailable, and that should be happening. But I thought he was really, really good in this game. And then Dyson had his best game of the season so far on offense for sure. 18 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, yes, 9 rebounds, yes, but was efficient around the rim, 8 of 13. Still want him to take more threes or threes at all, but I thought it was good to see Dyson in more attack mode, getting downhill. I did speculate on this a little bit over the last week. Like when Trae is not available, you do see Dyson ramp it up a little bit aggression-wise, and that might help him long-term, which I think he showed some of that in this game. But I thought he played well. Defensively, of course, makes all the flashes that he always makes. And overall, everybody other than Porzingis of the top 8 guys was solidly in the positive, the plus-minus, and a lot of balance, a lot of good play, and the Hawks played very well on the road to get a NBA Cup victory on this Friday evening. Again, one more note, the Hawks do lead the Cup group right now. It's only one game, but Toronto beat Cleveland tonight. Granted, it was the zombie Cavs without, I believe, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, and Darius Garland, and Max Strus. So 4 of their top 6 or 7 players didn't play in the game. But as far as like the future implications, yes, Toronto beat the Hawks, but that was a non-Cup game. So the Hawks are now number 1 in the group by I think it was like 9-point margin. So we'll see. They got more work to do over the next like 6 weeks, not 6 weeks, 4 weeks of NBA Cup action. But for now, they're 1-0, and that's a good place to be. Looking ahead a little bit here, the Hawks go to Cleveland, which is why I brought that up a second ago. They play on Cleveland on Sunday. As a PSA, the game is at 6 p.m. Eastern time, so an earlier tip-off than usual on a Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. The Cavs were the preseason betting favorite to win the East this year for understandable reasons. They won 64 games last year. They were really, really good. They are very banged up right now. We don't know as of now who's going to play for Cleveland in that game. But again, tonight they were missing Mitchell, Garland, and Allen. That's a lot. So we'll see. As for Trae, like the one thing that I will say, and I'm not speculating, I would be shocked if Trae flew back to Cleveland to play on Sunday. That's as far as I'll go. That's very obvious, by the way. But I think Trae won't be there. And I think that we'll see what Cleveland does. But that's a winnable game. No matter what, like the Cavs won't have a lot of their complement of guys, it seems like. And even if they do, the Hawks beat them last year a couple times. Like, it's a good team, but it's not an unbeatable one. And we'll see how the Hawks fare in that game. But certainly a nice, important win tonight. They're back to 3-3 on the season. They're not in bad shape at all. Like, yeah, you want to be 6-0. I get that. But they're totally in fine shape right now. After they play Cleveland, they come back home and get more normal again after this long road trip. But in the meantime, everyone holds their breath for the Trae Young news that will, I think, come down on Saturday, but nothing guaranteed there. If there is some news, I will probably try to record at some point on Saturday. I have some driving to do on Saturday, so we'll see what the timing is like. But I will have podcast content for you over the weekend at some point. So please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Please follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. You can follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow me on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and also follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks if you would like to at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday into Saturday, and we'll see you all next time.